It has been nearly 1 week since devastating floodwaters rocked eastern Kentucky.
In the wake of that disaster, Governor Beshear says at least 37 people are dead, what that number expected to rise. Video from this week shows water levels are falling in some of the most remote parts of the state. And as more infrastructure comes back online in the region, the governor says the official number for those missing now stands at 3.
Again, we're very concerned for those 3 people. All 3 are females in Breathitt County, but the number doesn't take into account other reporting to local agencies. And we know that there are more folks out there, though, with cell service. Definitely have found a lot more people. Thank you to the Kentucky State Police. Over 1,000 wellness checks, and most of them went incredibly well.
Now, to report a missing loved one, you're asked to call the KSP post in the region where they were last seen. While time has passed since the harrowing scenes of last week, for many of the affected, recovering from a disaster is nowhere near done.
Absolutely not. And Spectrum News 1's Jonathan Gregg is joining us live this evening in Letcher County. Jonathan, I'm sure you've heard so many just heartbreaking stories there. What do you have for us this evening?
Lucky neighbors, so many Kentuckians they've yet to get back to their property to even take out their belongings. I was talking to the relative of the woman living in this trailer. It was pushed off its foundation, then slammed against these trees. That utility pole, I'm told the resident is okay. All of her belongings, though, still inside, likely destroyed. Amid all of this pain, all of this damage, however, still finding those examples of neighbors helping neighbors. The IGA grocery store in Issam.
We're going to have to go and check on the store.
Has long been a central part of Gwendolyn Kristen's life for 50 years.
Since 1973. I started to work here in August in 1973.
Kristen never left, and she and her husband purchased the store in 1998. It has long been the heart of Issam.
I love the community, love the people that was working here with me, and I just said, if you all stay with me, we'll try to make it a go.
Last Wednesday, floodwater from this stream reached 6 feet inside the store, destroying everything.
We looked down here and I said, we're in trouble, Bub.
On Monday, volunteers that had been working to clear out the store abandoned their efforts due to the overpowering smell of spoiled food.
It's too much. It's too much.
So, for the moment, the future of the town's only full-size grocery store is in limbo. But Kristen is not standing idle. In fact, she's volunteering, managing this water and food pickup station. On Wednesday, they received a water donation from G&J Pepsi in Lexington.
But they asked me if I'd volunteer to take over the distribution of food and water, since that's what I do for a living. That's what I love to do. So I said, sure. I got to take care of my community.
Doing whatever she can to help the community she's been serving for 50 years and counting. My day started in Issam. I'm now in Whitesburg in Letcher County, and we see this example throughout our entire travels, just folks who really haven't been able to begin the recovery process. And you have to imagine, the closer you get to that Kentucky-Virginia border, the more rural it gets, the more difficult it gets for volunteers to even travel to this part of the state. They still need water, they still need food, and they need clothing. All of that's been ruined, just like what's inside this trailer behind me. Still a very dire situation for hundreds, if not thousands, of Kentuckians right now. That's the latest here in Whitesburg. I'm Jonathan Gregg reporting for Spectrum News.
On the ground in eastern Kentucky, National Guard troops are working to distribute water and other goods. Governor Beshear says more than 2,400 cases of water have been given out so far. They're also handing out ready-to-eat meals and other supplies. The governor's goal is to distribute so much water, organizers stop sending pallets.
And on the road, even as you're seeing the destruction over here, about every 2 miles, there's another place distributing water that people are pulling through, putting supplies in their car. Help has truly shown up, and it's real special to see.
Now, to find local distribution centers and information on how to help, head to our website, spectrumnews1.com. Devastation in eastern Kentucky after massive rainfalls left thousands stranded in floodwaters.
Governor Andy Beshear says at least 37 people are dead in the aftermath, with hundreds more feared missing 5 days after the disaster began. As rescue efforts continue, crews are hopeful to find more people isolated by mudslides and washed out bridges. Governor Beshear is hopeful cell service will reconnect folks isolated on mountaintops and in distant hollers.
Cellular service. It's great news. The infrastructure in eastern Kentucky appears to be completely restored for now. I know there are probably pockets that are still challenging.
The search now continues for dozens of people of eastern Kentucky, and those who survived are in dire need of help. Spectrum News 1's Jonathan Gregg is in Knott County this evening.
He joins us now live. Jonathan, good evening. What are you seeing out there on the ground in those communities?
Everything that was inside these buildings in downtown Hyndman continues to pile up on the sidewalk, as no building along Troublesome Creek was spared from this historic level of flash flooding. But my day started in one county over, in Perry, learning about a husband and father and his act of heroism. As frightening as the situation was,
it was 6 foot on the inside of the house.
Brian Miller says he never panicked.
When you panic, I know I'm sounding crazy, but when you panic, it takes your thought process away and it gets you in trouble sometimes.
Nearby Troublesome Creek came up too fast Wednesday night in Erie, Kentucky, trapping his family and neighbors in the valley. Luckily, Miller moved his wife and children into the family camper just high enough up the hill.
Never, ever have we ever seen water like this.
But his neighbors were in trouble. This is a photo Miller's wife Zola took showing her husband on their neighbor's roof, about to lead them to safety. They all stayed in this camper until the floodwater went down.
You can't allow things like this to take your thinking away, to be able to still think, to be able to how to get out of the situation and not be trapped.
On Tuesday, road crews reached Erie and the Millers to clear away tons of mud.
Of course, the ceiling's coming in, the floor's buckling.
And mud is all that Jean Everidge has left.
I don't think the building can be saved structurally.
Her floral shop in Hyndman is destroyed. She's been the owner for more than 30 years.
This was such a total loss. So, and unplanned at my age, when you're getting ready in a couple years to retire, you have to start over.
And at a time when so many families need comfort as they grieve, Everidge says she wishes she could do more. She's received several calls to do flower arrangements for victims of the flooding.
It's hard to realize you can't be there for someone who's hurting when you're hurting yourself.
While we was trying to clean out the second day here, the funeral home called and said, "Can you do a spray?" And I said, "I don't have anything. There's nothing left."
Showing, even during times of crisis and great loss, these Kentuckians want to put others before themselves. Jean Everidge, and like so many other Kentuckians, are hurting right now. She did say two things before I left. One, she is so thankful for all the people who have come to these communities to help out in any way they can. She wants, though, to say, don't forget about them. Don't forget about them, because this is going to be an incredibly long process for recovery. They need more boots on the ground. They need reinforcements to help remove all this debris and all this mud, just like we saw in her business and just like so many other businesses and homes throughout eastern Kentucky. But that is the latest in Knott County. I'm Jonathan Gregg reporting for Spectrum News.
Jonathan, thank you.
I'm not far from the Jones community in Perry County, and this is what families have been dealing with. This used to be Marion Drive leading into these homes, but it's all been washed out, leaving this huge crater behind. And this is one of the reasons why this recovery is going to take so long. For so many families along Troublesome Creek, life will never be the same.
It's just heartbreaking to look at and lose everything that was here. So
this was Kimberly Terry's childhood home in Hazard. Family photos on the wall are among the few items untouched by the rising waters.
Here's the water line.
She says her 75-year-old father has lived here more than 30 years, and even with all he's lost, he can't bear to leave it.
And he's so stubborn, he's sleeping on the front porch. He won't leave his house.
Terry says this week has been overwhelming, but she's grateful to still have her family.
My neighbor lost his life. We know several people, friends, that have lost their lives in this. So we're just blessed to be here.
Help continues to arrive from around the region. On Friday afternoon, it came in the form of a food drop-off from Restoration Ministries in Laurel County.
Oh, it's horrible. It's really humbling to come and see what these people are going through. You just pray the whole time you drive through.
Right now, we're just so overwhelmed, we don't know what we need. We need prayers.
Terry thinks she can save her own home nearby.
And myself and my brother Jimmy.
But the home she grew up in may be lost. In Perry County, Erin Kelly, Spectrum News.
I'm Lachlan McLean with Amber Smith. Happening right now, President Biden departing the bluegrass state after visiting flood-ravaged eastern Kentucky.
The president, joined by First Lady Jill Biden, met with local officials and survivors of the devastating floods. He is currently at the Bluegrass Airport in Fayette County. You are watching him and the First Lady right now. They got off Marine One and they will soon be heading for Air Force One after spending pretty much the entire day here in the Bluegrass state, much of their time being spent in eastern Kentucky. We did learn several new things today, Lachlan, including that the death toll is believed to now be at 38. That is what Governor Andy Beshear said today. We had previously, for several days, been saying the death toll was at 37. It looks like the president might be speaking now.
It was a good day. We're going to get a lot done down in Kentucky. I think they're going to be able to be in good shape. And the governor is really working. There's a real bipartisan effort down there.
Perry County tonight.
Jonathan, good evening to you. What are you seeing on the ground?
Amber, David, my original plan today was to make it to Erie, Kentucky, an unincorporated town, then make my way to Hinesman in Knott County, I believe, but I just never made it that far. Just so much destruction along the roadway. I would stop every quarter of a mile, talk to another family, a family who's lost everything, some whose entire homes were washed away, others who lost neighbors in this flooding, and again, others who lost family members. Speaking to a emergency professional down here, he says in all of his years, he's never seen flash flooding this bad. Around every turn of Highway 476 are homes that have been destroyed by floodwater.
All the way to the ceiling.
Or the foundation where homes used to be.
And he told them they better get the National Guard out.
Judy Hudson was rescued by helicopter from her home last Thursday.
The helicopter started flying over and we was waving stuff out the windows and they come and got us.
The water was nearly waist deep on the second floor of Hudson's home. And Troublesome Creek is more than 30 yards from their front door.
He dropped a basket down to the door and we got in the basket and they took us up in the basket.
Hudson and her husband survived, but she says her older sister and neighbor died in her home a quarter mile down the road.
Well, we didn't find her that first day. They found her the next, when the water went down to where they could get to her. Her grandson and her son-in-law went down there and found her. She was in the dining room laying on the floor.
Debris hanging from tree branches 20 and 30 feet above the water give you some kind of idea how high the floodwater rose. It was a monster.
I've been doing this for 33 years as a fireman, 25 years on one of the FEMA task forces, and this is the worst I've seen for flash flooding.
Battalion Chief Jay Settergren is a FEMA task force leader from Indianapolis. Settergren says residents hardly had any time to act.
And it just came through so violently, and it was very evident to us after the 1-inch rain last night. This has gone up 6 feet today.
Which means, sadly, the risk for more flooding hasn't passed.
Well, following the floodwaters, attention is turning to recovery efforts, but officials are concerned that some people may be taking advantage of this very situation. In Breathitt County, a curfew is in effect from 10 to 6 after reports of looting to the sheriff, John Holland, and County Attorney Brendan Miller. According to a Facebook post, people in Breathitt should stay home unless they are first responders or if they're traveling to work. In nearby Knott County, the city of Hindman has a similar curfew in place from sunset to sunrise. Now, the town's mayor says people taking advantage of others during this time are, quote, sick.
The Kentucky National Guard has released dramatic video of rescue efforts in eastern Kentucky as they pull people from waterlogged areas one by one.
Multiple agencies and multiple states are all working together to save people from the devastation.
All right, Cash Ops, rooftop is 3 miles west of Hazard at this time.
The rescue footage is compelling and heroic.
We're doing a hoist over here. We found some people on a roof. We're probably about just 200 yards behind you in the valley.
The Kentucky National Guard, aided by aircraft from Tennessee and West Virginia, lifting people to safety from 80 feet in the air. Some wearing only their underwear and a single shoe.
Bringing him inside. Boy, this guy's been in the water for a long time. I'd say take him to the hospital if you can.
Using Black Hawk and Lakota helicopters, the Guard has rescued thousands of residents.
Roger that. I got 3 adults and I think at least 2 kids on this next one. Looks like 3. And I got 4-wheeler guy is going to check and make sure that there's nobody left.
Colonel Jeremy Slinker took over as the director of Kentucky Emergency Management back in March. He explains why the rescue efforts can be so difficult.
So in mountainous areas, it always makes it tough to search. The terrain is steep in places. Obviously, it funnels water down into specific channels.
All right, ambulance is coming up the right side outside the rudder disc.
And while Slinker knows there will be more bad news to come, we celebrate every successful rescue.
Yeah, we got you, sir.
And Governor Beshear says roughly 1,300 people have been saved so far from the floods. Hundreds of people, though, remain missing at this hour.
When rising waters took over Edward Longstreth's home in Letcher County,
all this was under.
He knew the only way out was up the mountain.
I grabbed this ladder to climb out to get out for high ground.
And you said you crawled on your hands and knees.
Yep. I got a 9-year-old granddaughter. We had to climb up through there. It's bad. Like I say, it got in the house, everything's gone.
Nearly everything they own was damaged, now caked in the thick mud that seems to cover the whole county. Down the street, the water forced its way through businesses, places of worship, and the library in the Fleming Neon community, shattering glass and tossing books along Main Street. Inside this laundromat, the mud is up to my ankles, and you can see the line on the wall showing how high the water got. The owner says it forced the door open and knocked over 2 400-pound washing machines. It was the same scene in nearby Whitesburg, where Richard Brown was working to get his barbershop and hair salon back in business.
Worst I've ever seen in my life. Hope I never see nothing like this again.
We hit 21 feet last night. It came out of nowhere.
State Representative Angie Hatton grew up here. She spent Thursday helping with rescue efforts alongside some who had just lost their homes.
You hear stories and stereotypes about Eastern Kentucky, but there are not better people anywhere in the world. The kind of love and bravery that I saw from my community yesterday, I will never forget.
She said the people here are physically and emotionally exhausted, and while they don't yet know the extent of the damage, they know they will need help. In Letcher County, Erin Kelly, Spectrum News.
And Spectrum News 1's Jonathan Gregg has been there reporting for us that the damage is so widespread that finding enough volunteers can be a challenge.
Jonathan, good evening. And where do recovery efforts stand at this hour?
Long way to go. Widespread is an accurate word. It bears repeating how widespread the damage is. I spent about 3 hours on the road today, starting in Hazard, then Point South. And so it's not hard to believe, since so many people are affected. Many are just now getting started with the cleanup process. In fact, I met a pastor, you're about to meet him, who was waiting for out-of-state help to arrive before he started cleaning out his church.
That's where the water came with the force against it.
The smell inside Letcher Independent Baptist Church is growing stronger.
Yeah, it gets worse every day.
Pastor Bill Jones says he's planning to clear everything out as soon as help arrives. Jones says most of the church members are his age or older. In addition, many are dealing with their own losses from the flood, so he's relying on volunteer help he says is traveling from Tennessee.
We've had some people that's lost everything. Some of our members, their homes are gone. Quite a few of them, and others are severely damaged, so.
In fact, because of how rural many of the impacted communities are, people are struggling to find enough volunteers or relief items.
Yeah, it's going to be a while. That's why we're not we don't have internet yet, so we really can't communicate. Our phones are just starting to come back on.
Those who can are spending hours on the road driving to other towns who have items like food and clothing available, a task made difficult because so many vehicles were washed away.
We're wore out. We fell in mud and everything else.
Roy Dell drove 20 miles from Neon to Whitesburg to collect donated clothes and shoes from a roadside stand set up by a church group from Lexington.
The house over from me got flooded. The house above me got flooded. About 4 or 5 places down below us, down there where Baker Fence Company used to be, all of those got flooded.
Linda Sturgill is using a borrowed truck to collect clothes for her daughter and other relatives.
We do need more. Anytime they want to bring more. I've been down to get water. When you don't have any water, you can't do nothing.
When the creek surged up to Led and Kathy McIntosh's home, it took their driveway with it.
It sounded like a bomb going off going down the road.
They were stranded without power or plumbing in their Krypton home.
It's pretty scary. Pretty scary. It's right at 50 feet wide, and I'd say it's probably at least 25, 30 foot deep.
But then came a lifeline when McIntosh's brother arrived a few days later with a bit of nylon rope and some pulleys. A quick workaround that allowed them to get food, water, and even propane delivered by duffel bag.
Joins us now live. John, good evening. What are you seeing from where you are in Perry County?
Well, Perry County, Hazard, certainly a large base of operation for different disaster relief services. Here in this Walmart parking lot, we have the Walmart Mobile Disaster Kitchen. They've been handing out meals as people drive through. There's also a Tide Mobile Washing Center where families can wash their clothes that have been affected by the flooding. And then on the other side of the camera, there are mobile shower units near the Lowe's parking lot. But the damage, as we know, is so widespread, a lot of Kentuckians can't get to Hazard. So you have different disaster relief centers throughout the counties affected, and that's where our story starts, in Neon, Kentucky, in the far reaches of Letcher County. For Kentuckians, the long road to recovery drives right through downtown Neon.
Everyone that has come in said this is the hardest hit town in the region.
6 feet of water rushed through last week, destroying everything it touched. Mud, dust, and mold covers it all.
Okay, that is, go back down.
Downtown is where we find Mayor and longtime resident Susan Polis, helping newcomers navigate, manage the temporary town hall, and getting food and supplies to anyone who needs it.
But our people are doing okay. We're trying to get supplies out to them, water, meals. We're trying to take care of not just Fleming Neon, Hemp Hill, Mac Roberts, the surrounding areas.
The National Guard is here too, helping transport supplies to other pickup locations around Letcher County.
We help out as much as we can.
help get donations in, as well as we've been going up to the haulers, taking food or any kind of supplies that they're needing. So pretty much just anything the community really needs right now.
A drive down Highway 476 in Breathitt and Perry counties is a winding reminder of the devastation caused by July's flash flooding. The heartbreak endured is emphasized by what's left of homes, and around some corners, there is nothing left at all.
I went over that fence. I went over it and caught on my foot.
The fast-moving water tried washing Orby Campbell away and nearly succeeded, but the 75-year-old's leg got caught by his fence.
Yeah, he took my clothes off of it and everything coming down through here. There's a log got on me. I don't know how many times I went under the water, but...
Spectrum News visited his home several days later, while Campbell, a Vietnam veteran, was visiting the VA Center in Hazard.
It's just heartbreaking to look at and lose everything that was here. So
Campbell's daughter, Kimberly Terry, showed us inside.
Here's the water line.
And it was then we learned.
And he's so stubborn, he's sleeping on the front porch. He won't leave his house.
Campbell was sleeping outside in order to guard his property. He slept there for days.
About 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, I sat right there from that window on the bed.
3 months later, and it's still hard to imagine how high the water was.
The first plank below the window, it was up to that one that goes across there.
Water reached the second floor of Judy Hudson's Breathitt County home. Here's where it came from. Troublesome Creek sits 10 yards below the road and 40 yards from Hudson's home, and it still got that high.
And then I called his sister, my husband's sister, and told her to keep a calling the state police and tell them we was trapped.
Cable up. Clear out. That's off the ground.
The Kentucky Air National Guard rescued 19 people, many from the roofs of homes during July's historic flash flooding. Judy Hudson crawled into a basket from her second floor door.
The helicopter started flying over, and we was waving stuff out the windows, and they come and got us.
Hudson was safe, but like so many Kentuckians, suffered a great loss.
You have no idea. It's hard. And if my sister would have lived, it would have been different, you know. It wouldn't have mattered, but it's hard.
Hudson's sister died in her home just a quarter-mile down the road. And 3 months later, Hudson and her husband have yet to replace the flooring or drywall in their home, which has a strong, musty odor, though it's where Judy spends most of her day.
That's probably why I'm coughing.
Rock baskets put in last year to try to help with erosion.
Philip Fleming remembered the sound of the creek surging up under the home in Neon that used to belong to his grandparents. The one he spent almost 2 years fixing up.
You can see how low the creek is now.
That night, the creek, little more than a trickle now, washed away part of the foundation and a nearby bridge.
Oh yes, very fast. I had never seen water move that fast. It was like I had pressure behind it or something.
And there's blocks coming loose, and the floors are warping now, and flooring coming up, so FEMA told us do not spend the first night there.
They've been living with his parents since July, and after months that seemed to crawl by, Fleming and his family could wait a little longer for the delivery that would help make them whole again. What's happening today?
Well, today we're getting the last half of our double wide.
This month, progress came up Highway 317 in the form of a new home, wrapped like a 2,100 square foot gift.
It's going to feel rewarding, even though we've been dealt such a hard blow. Within such a short amount of time, we've been able to rebound back. There's been so many people help us.
It was a daunting task for the crew.
So far, so good.
Squeezing the second half down the driveway and maneuvering it into place in front of the Flemings' former house.
Seemed a little hairy to me, but they seem to know what they're doing, so.
Fleming said FEMA assistance helped them to make the down payment on the new home, and it's bigger than the one they lost.
It's been unreal. And you know, to be able to overcome this, it's going to be nice to get back into our new normal once again.
The family hoped to move into the new home by the end of the month and then begin making new memories.
Christmas is ours. Christmas is at our house this year.
A Christmas in a new home. Grateful for all the hands that helped get them there.